Here is the start of what I think is going to be my quick change rear end. What we're looking at is a later model Ford Banjo rear end. It's an open drive unit. The way that you can tell, closed units don't have a yoke and everything like this. They have a torque tube, and then your drive shaft runs inside the torque tube. So that's another clue that this is a later model. I guess one of the other things, from what I understand, is most of them have the different mounts for the transverse leaf spring, and this has mounts for parallel leaf springs. What I need off of this are the tubes and some of the guts on the inside of it. And the reason I don't need all of it, one of the things you'll notice different about a Banjo is that the hubs are bolted on from the outside. And the reason for that is that the way it's assembled, from my understanding, is that all the guts are put inside of it first. There's a gear set in there, and the axles fit inside that. And then before you put these tubes on, the axles are just hanging out. So then you slide the tubes on. There's some things you have to do to make sure that the gears are meshed properly, and then you start bolting all the brakes and other fittings on the outside. Okay, so that's great, except if you break an axle. Because the axles are not held into the tubes themselves, what will happen is, I'm told that an axle can go rolling out of the side of the car, which is less than optimal when you're going down the road. So, what to do? Well, I tried draining the oil out of it. There was nothing in there. It must be just all gumped up in a bunch of grease. Not really surprising. Gonna have to take the cotter pins out down here, unbolt all this goop, get all of it off, and then start pulling the tubes off. So all those bolts that go around the side there. So I'll do that. Got to grind these brackets off, won't need those. Clean all this stuff up, and then plan after that is there's a kit from a place called, I think it's Hot Rod Works. I'll drop a link for them because they're probably doing some pretty good work if they're making this kind of stuff happen. So there's a set of gears that you can get that fit like the original axle ones do in there, except the axles are not attached to them. They're a spline set of gears. So the axles will slide in from the outside, and then on the tubes themselves, you cut the ends off, you put some Ford ends on it, and then like the 9-inch stuff, when you slide the axle in, there's a little plate that goes over the end of the axle and the bearing, and what it does is holds the axle into the housing. So if anything breaks, it all stays contained. So that is the initial. I'll start taking it apart and see what happens. I took all the bolts off the side bells there in preparation, and then I took the cotter pin, bolt, and washer off of each hub on the sides. But then there comes the problem of, well, how do I get the hub off? And I thought maybe I could tap it off, or, you know, I thought it would be easier, maybe use a 2-jaw puller or something. Well, it didn't work for me, but maybe it'd work for you. So I ended up having to buy a tool. And the tool looks like this. So I'll tell you already that I bought this tool, and as you'll see here in a second, the bolts don't look the same. The reason they don't is because the shipping company lost a bunch of pieces. Well, I say a bunch of pieces. They lost one of these bolts, and they lost this big crossbar that goes on here. So the way that it works is you take it all apart, and then you put the back part on the flange right there. It fits in here, and then the crossbar should go across there, and it should push on the end of it, the axle, and then just, you know, kind of pop this whole thing off. So I'll get it on there and show you what it looks like. Give me just a second. Once you get the tool installed, it looks something like this. So as I said, if the shipper hadn't lost it. There would be a metal crossbar that goes here, and then when we put these bolts in and start tightening them down, then what you get is a crossbar pushing on the axle there, and you know, the tool pulling on the hub, and then it all comes apart. Look, I'm not making a political statement here, I'm really not, but aren't you tired of like paying for stuff and paying for services and then not getting what you paid for? You ever get tired of that? I just don't know what kind of world we live in anymore. You know, I guess the reason that most of us end up doing a lot of the stuff ourselves is you pay for it and you never get what you pay for. I mean, how hard is it to just take a box that's all taped up and not spill a bunch of stuff on it where the box comes apart and you lose parts out of it, and then, you know, nobody says anything about it. They just throw whatever's left into a bag and bring it to your door. It's a sad state of affairs, man. But I will endeavor to continue. Maybe I got some metal inside that I can use to make my own thing for this, and just roll through it. So that's what I plan on doing. Okay, now I gotta go find some steel. I cut 4-inch by 2-inch pieces of strap steel, 4 of them. I'll take this, set it on top, something like that. And then I'll take this thing. These are Harbor Freight center punches. And I'll just center punch each hole there, drill them, and then weld the 4 straps together. And then that'll makeshift me something that I can actually use, at least to get this done, since nobody can seem to do their job correctly. I'll just have to do it for them. All right. All right. So this is what I came up with. I'm gonna try it and see if it works. You know, I'm not gonna say it's beautiful. It's functional. Well, we'll just see if it holds. I'll put it that way. You guys all know it's like, you know, you waste hours of your life. It's bad enough when it's out of your own ineptitude. At least you learn something. But when it's from somebody else, it's just like a total waste. Anyway, let's see if it works. Well, here's a heck of a setup, huh? All right. The one bolt that they sent seems kind of long. You could probably get away with a lot shorter one, but I'm not going to buy another one because I've already been through this. So I'm just going to tell you, I jam a hammer down in there. You just need something to take up the space and push on the end of the axle. So I'm going to try that and see how it works and report back. How's that sound? How did it work? Well, I'll tell you the truth, didn't really even get any satisfaction, because you can see the axle stub is through there. I mean, this is coming off, and you can see the bunches of rust. So maybe if I'd have tried a little harder in another way, maybe this would have come off. You know, maybe not. You got all that junk in there to deal with. The rest of this looks like it'll be standard drum brake stuff. Boy, technology sure hadn't changed much if you're still into drum brakes, has it? Piston down there, a couple springs, connector at the top. So I'll strip that off and see where I can get. Okay, so here's part of the prize. So after you get the hub off, there's a couple bolts holding the backing plate on. All right, stick through right there. Got to take some cotter pins out and then pull the bolts off the backside. They're sticking through like this. Then when you pull that off, after you got the bolts off and got the brake line unbolted, you end up with this part right here. So that's halfway there. I can start undressing it kind of at this point. Sometimes things don't go as planned. I think it's kind of important to show that too. Because, like, You know, all these TV shows, they all show you everything's fine, just worked out perfectly. Oh, look, it messed up, but we had everything. Oh, yeah, whatever. Okay, so my tool is bending over there. Okay, this hub has not budged. I've been tapping on it, doing different stuff. Got out the old Bauer earthquake, and I'm probably just going to end up running the tool. Sorry about that. So what this old Banjo rear end doesn't understand is that I don't want or need any of this stuff. Okay, matter of fact, all I need is that bell and tube right there. So because we can't come to an understanding, I think a cutting wheel will be involved in getting this done over here. I don't want to keep wasting time. I would rather just start zipping stuff off, and maybe I could get some heat. That might help. So I might go inside and grab a torch, see if I can get that to work. We shall continue. The decision has been made to attempt to increase the modulus of stiffness by booger welding all the edges together instead of just tacking them. That's ugly. All right, let's try that. What we're down to is violence. And anybody who says that violence doesn't solve anything probably hasn't had a problem that violence can solve. You should avoid those people at all costs. So eventually I will get that cut off, and then I'm going to have 2 tubes. That is what I need. And then also the carrier on the inside of here. And that's pretty crusty looking in there, isn't it? Doesn't smell great either. But take all that apart and talk some more about those pieces. Let me get back to work. Yeah, you know, when you get to that point where you're like, yeah, but it's going to take me 40 minutes to get everything set up to do this. And then 4 hours later, you're like, well, if I'd have just done this first, I'd have been done 3 hours and 20 minutes ago. Right there. Bro, when they say they don't build them like they used to, I'm talking about, come on now. How much do you have to cut out? My. Wait, let me turn it sideways. I don't know if persistence is key or stupidity, but one way or another, it's off, so there's that. We can get down to this part. Excuse the mess. So first we're going to take all that wire out that they're using instead of cotter pins. You know, back in the day, they just strung it through there. And take the nuts off, see where we go. Now we start this forensic examination. Yes? Okay, so I pull the nuts off. A little bit of hammering. Got the ring gear to come off. So that's great. And here's what I was saying. So this is the axle stub right here. That pokes through. And there's your spider gear that meshes inside the housing assembly. I'm trying not to make a huge mess here. But so it houses, it's inside that assembly, and so is the other axle. So again, the goal with this is to eventually, let's see if I can take a picture of something besides my foot, is to get some spider gears like this, but instead of them being bound onto the axle, what we're looking for is the spider gears that have the appropriate splines for a 9-inch axle. So that is the goal. What am I going to need to retain? Well, I need to retain all the stuff inside there Plus, I'll keep the nuts. Castellated originals from 1947 or thereabouts. I really could probably put new ones on in May, but I'll keep them around just in case. Okay, back to work. Semi-pro tip, which I should have followed. So, put the castellated nuts back on down to the end of the bolt there, because you've got to drive those out. So, if you got the castellated nut on, you're probably not going to booger the threads, but I already did that on one of them. So, that'll be either more work or more parts later. I didn't booger it too bad. You can see it's back on there. It's opposite. But, you know, at least it gets me somewhere, I guess. So drive those bolts out, take the nuts off, drive them the rest of the way out, and this ought to all come apart. Further down in the goo, the ring comes out. Okay, we got that. We'll put that over here. Icky poo, icky poo. All right, we'll start. Oh, look. Cool. Need that. Need that. The rest of this, I would say, with the exception of the housing right there, could go. Don't know if I can do it here. Oh, let's see. To the refuse bin. Oh, well, looks like to get this off, we'll have to pry out the cotter key right there. Hope I'm not making you too dizzy. I'm sorry, I'm one-handed it here. I'm about to upgrade, get nicer stuff, build bigger barns, etc. But not today. All right, so there's all the parts for the carrier there. You got the bells and tubes. That's great. Got extra stuff. And that's it. Okay, I'm going to clean up. The next thing to do is start talking about the commitment. Or maybe just talking it over with myself. And what I mean by that is, you know, you want to quick change rear end. You can find some old junk and rebuild it. You can get new stuff. You can do part and part. So I'm going to do the half and half, right? This old stuff plus the new center section. But you're still looking easily at $2,000 just to get the center section of the parts. They look cool. If you're only going to do it once and that's what you want, I would suggest doing that. Okay. I finally got all this stuff fairly well cleaned up. At least enough that I'd want to put a hand on it, even a dirty hand. So I thought we'd take a look at that, and then I'll close out this video and probably start fresh with kind of the build-up, I guess. So there's your cross bolts that go through the carrier. Castellated nuts. These are 3/8-24. I would suggest replacing these, especially if they're like mine. I mean, they've been here a few years. See if I can get this thing taken apart. Stand by. Finally got that shaken loose. Cool stuff. Can you see the grooves in the outside of there? Why does that matter? I'm talking about all these little tiny grooves. Maybe they're harder to see. So those are all lathe marks. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I guess I'm a geek, but the bottom of that carrier, you know, it was machined on a lathe. There were no CNC lathes. Somebody did this by hand. I just think that's kind of neat. Still going. All right, so that's one side of the carrier. Your spider gear set kind of goes in there like that. And then the other side of the carrier goes on top. It all gets bolted together. The ring gear will bolt to that side of things. Okay, so that cavity and this cavity in here is where the old axles used to sit. So the gear that makes the axle turn is sitting right in the middle of those spiders right there. So the old way to do it is you'd set the axle in on the inside and then take the carrier half, put it on that side. Same thing with the axle on the other side, and then slide the ring gear over it. and bolt it all together, and then you put it in the middle of the banjo housing, and then start working gear mesh after you got one side of the bells and tubes on. So with this, you have to buy these gears in here that work with 9-inch, either 28 or 31 spline. I think they're 28. The other thing that you have to have is that I believe these spider gears have to be 11 tooth, and these are. So that's all fantastic. So that's where I am. You know, just finally getting things where you'd be able to kind of work with them a little bit. You can see I was sawing on that. Actually had a cut-off wheel. Was getting the bearing off. I got the cage and the needles out of it, but just got to get the race on the inside out. So got that going for me. But that's it. So that's the take apart. And the next thing I'll do is make the big commitment, which is about $2,000 worth of quick change center section. That'll all be exciting, but there is much work to be done. Till next time.